Hi, my name's Bernini. I am currently serving as the Civilian Personnel Officer on Schriever Space Force Base here in Colorado. I have a staff of 9 HR professionals, and their tasks vary from recruitment and placement to employee relations. Our main advisory service is to teach military and civilian supervisors how to supervise civilians. So part of that is conduct and discipline, performance management, of course recruitment and placement, hiring ethically, those types of things, and performance management. I'm not sure if I said that already. Probably did. That's okay. Moving on. Reasonable accommodation as well. How can we accommodate individuals with disabilities? So we're typically the first line of defense in preventing unethical hiring practices, and so we do collaborate with our JA as well to make sure that we're aligning with the laws and regulations. Today I'm going to talk about an unethical situation that occurred in my earlier career as a junior HR specialist. This particular situation violates the merit system principles and aligns with prohibited personnel practices, which is typically what we follow in the federal HR service. My role at the time, like I said, was a junior HR recruitment and placement specialist. And so depending on what organizations that were assigned to me, I would have to advise on how to hire different hiring authorities and those types of things. I was approached by a higher level individual from the wing to hire their family member. So this particular individual was really more or less bullying, intimidating in their demeanor, and I didn't feel at the time that I could say no. However, I really didn't feel like it was right to proceed with this request. So I did request to have this particular case moved to another person. Unfortunately, this person was hired. The organizational framework that Major Ulitz speaks about is the structural frame, the former role of the leader used to create an environment of unethical behavior. So I'd like to say this was the first time this happened. I'm sure this happened quite a bit with different scenarios. The embedded mechanism, deliberate role modeling, teaching and coaching through visible behavior of hiring through nepotism. The particular position that I'm speaking about would be an emergency dispatcher position for our fire department. You might ask, well, seems like a pretty critical role. What does a good candidate look like? Their previous experience should include vehicle dispatching, emergency response, being a firefighter or EMT, or even law enforcement. The family member did not meet these qualifications, unfortunately, as you might have guessed. The risk is hiring an unqualified person for a critical role. This could have been disastrous and even fatal. So what I'm really talking about, the actual duty title is an emergency vehicle dispatcher, but it's really a 911 call line for the installation. So as you can imagine, the person needs to be qualified and be able to handle a lot of intense situations under pressure. Since I had this case transferred to another person, I didn't really get the follow-up until, of course, I learned they were hired. The outcome was predictable. The individual exhibited misconduct in formal training. He would call out last minute, and these shifts were 12-hour shifts. It was a 24/365 operation. It's a no-fail mission. And then eventually this member quit with very little notice. The impact left the organization in dire straits. It was a really terrible situation to be in. And the key point I'm making for this particular situation is it was preventable if the laws and regulations would have been followed in the first place. As far as organizational impact, Major Hewlett speaks about another embedded mechanism, observed criteria of the organization's systems and procedures. So the message sent when this hiring happened was that hiring in the federal service is more about who you know versus hiring qualified applicants. And it failed to reduce anxiety and created an unpredictable environment for that particular work center, as well as the rest of the organization. It also sets a tone that the more power that you yield in an organization, the more exempt you are from following the rules, which shouldn't really be the case. The framework of power that Major Hewlett talks about is the challenge here. This is where the ethical standards in the organization are challenged. The leader had a misguided moral and ethical compass. Now, like I said before, this wasn't the only situation this leader was involved in, but this one really stood out to me and it still sticks with me today. And I really try, as now a civilian personnel officer, to ensure this doesn't happen again. The framework that Major Hewlett talks about in his article, another frame is the political frame, suggesting power is the primary for consideration. So by this leader going to a subordinate member and directing them to do work that was unethical, that was using their power to do something unethical. I see it as an abuse of power, negotiation of non-negotiable standards. When you think of laws and regulations, those are really put in place for a reason, and they're non-negotiable. My recommendation is the leader must commit to leading with integrity, honesty, and fairness. And that's what we train our supervisors on. They need to follow the laws, which are essentially the merit system principles, avoid nepotism as it fosters a negative culture. And the goal is to ensure the right person is hired for the right job. It builds a healthy and attractive organization, and it draws and retains top talent.